My sister moved in to assist after my surgery, but betrayed me with my husband. My younger sister moved in to supposedly help me recover from surgery. But instead, she began an affair with my husband. After engaging a private investigator, I uncovered their betrayal and shared it with my family. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and the past few months have left my life in chaos as I try to process the events that unfolded. My husband, Brian, 31, and I have been married for 4 years. We met during college, and I always thought our relationship was solid. We bought our first home 2 years ago in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Brian works in IT, while I'm a nurse at a nearby hospital. My younger sister, Sabrina, 25, has always been the family's favorite. As the youngest of 3 siblings, our parents, Helen, 55, and Noah, 58, treated her differently growing up. Sabrina could do no wrong. She was never blamed for missing items or messes, while our older brother, Isaac, 32, moved across the country after college and rarely visits, a decision I now understand better. The trouble began 3 months ago when I underwent emergency gallbladder surgery. Recovery was expected to take a few weeks, but complications left me bedridden for 6 weeks. I couldn't lift heavy objects, drive, or manage household tasks. Brian initially took leave from work, but after a week, his employer pressured him to return. That's when my parents suggested Sabrina stay with us to help. She had recently graduated with a marketing degree and was jobless, so it seemed like perfect timing. Though Sabrina and I were never close, Brian thought it was a great idea, saying it would ease his stress and give me company during the day. Sabrina arrived with 2 large suitcases and quickly settled into our guest room, decorating it with her photos and plants as if it were her own space. At first, I was thankful. She cooked meals, did laundry, and kept me company while Brian was at work. She'd sit on my bed, chatting about her college friends and her ambitions in marketing. But after 2 weeks, things started feeling off. Sabrina began wearing my clothes without permission and using my expensive shampoo and skincare products. When I mentioned it, she brushed it off, saying, "We're sisters, what's the issue?" She also rearranged the kitchen and living room, claiming she was making things more efficient for me. Brian seemed to enjoy her presence more than I expected. He'd come home and immediately engage with Sabrina about his day. They'd cook dinner together while I rested upstairs, their laughter and chatter echoing through the house. When I joined them for meals, the conversation felt stilted, as if I were intruding. One night, about 3 weeks into Sabrina's stay, I went downstairs for water and found them watching a movie on the couch, sitting closer than necessary, with Brian's arms stretched behind her. When he saw me, he quickly pulled his arm away, and Sabrina slid to the other end of the couch. They acted like nothing was wrong, but the tension was palpable. I started paying closer attention. Sabrina began bringing Brian his morning coffee before he left for work and texted him throughout the day, supposedly updating him on my condition, but their exchanges seemed overly long. She also started washing his laundry with mine, folding his clothes with noticeable care. The tipping point came in my 5th week of recovery. Feeling stronger, I moved around the house more. One afternoon, I went upstairs for a nap around 2 p.m. but couldn't sleep, so I came back down an hour later for tea. As I entered the kitchen, I heard voices from the laundry room. Pausing in the hallway, I overheard Sabrina quietly sympathizing with Brian about how hard it must be for him to manage everything. Brian responded softly, praising how much easier she made things. There was a long pause, followed by sounds of movement, like someone stepping closer. I called out, asking if anyone wanted tea. They emerged from the laundry room quickly, Sabrina's face flushed and Brian looking guilty. Sabrina claimed they were fixing the washing machine, but when I checked, it was working fine. That night, Brian was overly attentive, bringing me dinner in bed and asking repeatedly if I needed anything. It felt forced, like he was compensating for something. Sabrina stayed in her room most of the evening, unusual since she typically watched TV in the living room. I started feeling like an outsider in my own home. Brian and Sabrina had developed inside jokes and references I didn't understand. They'd stop talking abruptly when I entered a room. Sabrina cleaned obsessively, reorganizing everything to her taste while acting like she was doing me a favor. The final straw came on a Thursday evening in my 6th week of recovery. Feeling much better, I suggested Sabrina return to our parents' house soon, as I was nearly back to normal. Both she and Brian objected, insisting I still needed help and it was too early for her to leave. Later that night, I woke up at midnight to find Brian missing from our bed. Assuming he was watching TV, I searched the living room and kitchen but couldn't find him. Then I noticed the guest room door was locked, which was odd since Sabrina usually left it slightly open, citing discomfort in unfamiliar places. Standing in the hallway, I heard muffled voices and Brian's distinct laugh. My heart sank. I returned to our bedroom and pretended to be asleep when Brian slipped back into bed an hour later. The next morning, I firmly told Sabrina I was feeling better and suggested she go home for the weekend. She seemed nervous, saying I still needed help, and Brian backed her up, urging me not to rush my recovery. But I stood my ground, and they reluctantly agreed she'd leave on Sunday. That's when I decided to check Brian's phone, something I'd never done before. My instincts screamed that something was wrong. On Saturday morning, while Brian showered, I read his messages. What I found made me ill. Brian and Sabrina had been texting extensively since her arrival. The messages started innocently but quickly turned personal. Sabrina sent Brian selfies and photos of her cooking or cleaning, and he responded with compliments about her appearance and gratitude for her help. The texts escalated. Sabrina wrote that she always thought Brian was too good for me and believed he was unhappy in our marriage. Brian replied that Sabrina understood him in ways I never did, and they talked about how natural it felt to be together, wishing circumstances were different. The most recent messages, from the previous night, revealed Brian saying the past few weeks were the happiest he'd felt in years, and Sabrina admitting she'd been waiting for the right moment to confess her feelings, with my surgery providing the perfect opportunity. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself. Sitting on our bed, I grappled with the reality that my sister had schemed to seduce my husband during my recovery, and Brian had betrayed me in our own home. I chose not to confront them immediately. Instead, I acted normal for the rest of Saturday, helped Sabrina pack, and thanked her for her help. She hugged me goodbye on Sunday morning, promising to visit soon. Brian drove her to our parents' house, returning home distracted and subdued. A week later, Brian's guilt was evident. He was distant, constantly texting, and more secretive with his phone. I suspected he and Sabrina were still in contact. I hadn't told anyone what I'd found, unsure who to trust. Our parents always favored Sabrina, and my brother was too far away to help. I felt utterly alone. I debated confronting Brian, talking to Sabrina, or telling our parents. Part of me wanted to ignore the messages and save my marriage, but the truth was unbearable. The thought of their emotional affair continuing while I was bedridden and dependent haunted me. Update 1: the overwhelming support from my original post was unexpected. Thank you all. A lot has happened since then, and I want to share an update. After my initial post, I spent a week gathering more evidence. Screenshots alone wouldn't suffice, especially since Sabrina has a knack for twisting situations to seem innocent. I needed undeniable proof before deciding my next steps. I created a Google Voice number and a fake social media profile, posing as someone planning a surprise for Sabrina. By contacting her college friends, I learned unsettling details about her past. One friend revealed Sabrina had a history of pursuing other people's partners, including sabotaging a junior-year relationship by constantly texting and visiting a friend's boyfriend with food and study help. I also reviewed our home security footage from the front and back doors, which stores recordings for 30 days. The clips were disturbing. Multiple instances showed Brian and Sabrina standing close on our back patio, talking intimately. One late-night video captured them embracing for far longer than appropriate for a brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Brian's behavior became more obvious. He was constantly checking his phone, smiling at messages, and claiming to work late more often, citing extra projects. He also started criticizing my cooking, appearance, and energy, as if justifying something to himself. 2 weeks after my post, I drove by our parents' house to check if Brian's car was there, despite telling him I was meeting a work friend. Parking down the street, I saw his car in their driveway. After waiting 2 hours, I watched Sabrina walk him to his car. They talked for a few minutes before she hugged him, not a familial hug, but one with her arms around his neck for at least 30 seconds. That evening, I confronted Brian about being at our parents' house and lying about work. He got defensive, accusing me of paranoia and control. He claimed Sabrina needed help with her car, and he'd gone to assist since our father was busy. I pointed out that our father could handle car issues, but Brian insisted Sabrina specifically asked for him. I didn't reveal the text messages yet, instead expressing concern about his behavior during Sabrina's stay. He exploded, saying my recovery had made me suspicious of everyone and that Sabrina was only helpful. The argument escalated, and he slept in the guest room. The next morning, he apologized, blaming work stress, but his car story didn't add up, especially with the security footage showing their frequent interactions. I decided to hire a private investigator despite it feeling extreme. I needed the full scope of their actions. I chose a highly recommended specializing in marital investigations, shared all my information, and asked him to monitor Brian and Sabrina for 2 weeks. The results were devastating. The provided photos and detailed reports of their meetings at restaurants, a park near our parents' house, and a downtown coffee shop. Images showed them holding hands, kissing, and behaving like a couple. The most crushing evidence came from a motel parking lot, where they were photographed entering together on a Tuesday afternoon when Brian was supposedly at work. They left 3 hours later, looking relaxed, with Brian's arm around Sabrina's waist. The also confirmed Brian was taking half-days and long lunch breaks, with his boss expressing concern about his performance. I cried for an hour in my car during a hospital lunch break. For over a month, my husband of 4 years and my sister had been openly cheating, using my medical crisis to hide their affair. I decided to confront our parents before Brian and Sabrina. On a Saturday morning, I arrived at their house with printed copies of the photos and report. Sabrina was lounging in her pajamas, watching TV, while our mother cooked breakfast and our father read the newspaper. It felt like a normal family scene, making what I was about to do even harder. I asked everyone to sit down for an important discussion. I explained how I discovered Brian and Sabrina's affair. Sabrina immediately cried, denying everything and calling me delusional. Our parents looked confused and worried. Then I showed the photos, undeniable evidence of them holding hands, kissing, and entering the motel. Sabrina's denials grew frantic, but the images were clear. Our father got angry, not at Sabrina, but at me for hiring a calling it an invasion of privacy and an extreme reaction. Our mother cried, insisting there was a misunderstanding. Sabrina's response shocked me most. After 10 minutes of denial, she stopped crying and looked at me defiantly. She claimed Brian had told her our marriage was over and that he planned to divorce me. She said he described me as cold and distant, never truly happy with me, and that she and Brian had a genuine connection. She went on to say Brian had confessed his loneliness in our marriage and considered leaving me long before my surgery. Sabrina refused to apologize, insisting Brian initiated the affair and that their feelings were too strong to resist. My parents sat in stunned silence. Our mother sobbed, unable to process the situation, while our father seemed more concerned about the family's reputation than the betrayal. Neither defended me nor condemned Sabrina. I left their house and went home to confront Brian, determined to end our marriage. Update 2, the confrontation with Brian didn't go as planned, and what he revealed made me question everything I knew about my family. That Saturday evening, after showing my parents the evidence, Brian came home acting normal. I sat at the kitchen table with the photos spread out. His face went pale when he saw them. I told him I knew everything and asked him to leave. After a long pause, he sat down and shared a story that changed everything. Brian claimed the affair didn't start as I thought. He said Sabrina had been texting him for months before my surgery, often when she knew I wasn't around, asking about our relationship and suggesting I didn't appreciate him enough. He initially saw her as a concerned sister, but her messages grew flirtatious and suggestive. He admitted he should have told me but didn't want to stir family drama, knowing my strained relationship with our parents. When my surgery was scheduled, Sabrina eagerly volunteered to stay with us, telling our parents she wanted to help with my recovery, but texting Brian privately about spending time together. Brian said he tried to keep things appropriate during her stay, but Sabrina sought moments alone with him, criticizing me and saying he deserved better. He claimed she initiated their first kiss in the laundry room the day I overheard them, confessing she'd loved him since we met. Brian admitted he didn't stop her, marking the start of their physical affair. He insisted he never told Sabrina our marriage was over or that he planned to leave me, calling her claims lies to justify her actions to my parents. He said her attention flattered him during a stressful time with my recovery and household chaos. When I asked why he continued the affair after Sabrina left, he said she threatened to tell me he'd seduced her and to tell our parents he'd taken advantage of her during her stay. Brian showed me texts supporting his story. Sabrina aggressively pursued him, planning their meetings and expressing her desire to have him to herself, even discussing how to divide our assets and whether I'd give up the house. He said her comments during her stay, like suggesting the guest room as an office or kitchen upgrades, now seemed like part of a larger plan. I wasn't sure if I believed Brian. The texts backed his story, but he'd still lied and cheated for weeks. I told him I needed time to think and asked him to stay elsewhere. He went to his brother's, and I spent the next week reflecting on our relationship. I realized I'd ignored signs of Sabrina's inappropriate interest in Brian. She sat too close at family dinners, touched him unnecessarily, and asked overly personal questions about his life. She'd also made subtle digs about our marriage, which I dismissed as sisterly concern, but now saw as manipulative. I contacted Sabrina's college roommate, found through old social media posts. She revealed Sabrina's pattern of targeting other people's partners, breaking up at least 3 relationships by convincing men their partners didn't value them. She'd even shown her roommate photos of Brian, saying he was perfect for her, not me. I also learned Sabrina had been planting doubts about my marriage with our parents for years, framing it as concern for Brian's happiness. Armed with this, I confronted Sabrina at our parents' house on a Thursday evening. I told her I knew about her history and showed her Brian's texts. She dropped her innocent act, admitting she always thought she was better for Brian. She claimed he'd been unhappy for years and that my surgery was just a convenient opportunity, but she'd have pursued him regardless. Our parents overheard, and our father made excuses for her, calling it a youthful mistake. Our mother begged us to reconcile as a family, but I was done protecting toxic ties. I told them Brian and I were divorcing because of Sabrina's actions, and that I wouldn't attend family events with her present. Our father accused me of overreacting, and our mother said I was tearing the family apart over a forgivable error. Neither acknowledged Sabrina's deliberate betrayal. I left, realizing my relationship with them was likely over. Update 3: Many have asked about my divorce and family situation, so here's a final update. The past 2 months have been tough, but I'm moving forward. Brian and I finalized our divorce last week. Despite his claims of Sabrina's manipulation, I couldn't forgive his betrayal during my vulnerability. Our father helped Brian move his things out while I was at work, a cowardly move but not surprising. With no kids and less than 5 years of marriage, splitting assets was straightforward. I kept the house, as I could afford the mortgage, while Brian took most of our savings and his student loan and credit card debts. Interestingly, Brian and Sabrina's relationship unraveled quickly once it was out in the open. My brother Isaac, who still talks to our parents occasionally, says they've been fighting constantly since Brian moved into their house. Sabrina expected gratitude and romance, but Brian seems resentful, blaming her for pushing him into a relationship he wasn't ready for and costing him his marriage. Our parents are struggling with the tension of having them both under their roof, an arrangement meant to be temporary but dragging on. Our father complains to Isaac about the drama, and our mother is exhausted from playing peacemaker. I've cut contact with Sabrina, our parents, and Brian, except for divorce-related communication. Brian has tried reaching out to apologize, but I haven't responded. I blocked Sabrina on social media and changed my phone number. My mother leaves voicemails begging me to come home or call, but I'm not ready. Our father hasn't reached out, which hurts but isn't surprising. My workplace has been supportive, with my boss adjusting my shifts to avoid potential run-ins with Brian or Sabrina. I've been rebuilding my relationship with Isaac and his wife, Camilla, who have invited me for the holidays. Isaac confirmed he moved away to escape our family's dysfunction, validating my choice to cut ties. I learned Sabrina lost her new marketing job after her employer heard about her role in my marriage's collapse, and our parents are now supporting her financially as she job hunts. Most of our extended family, including our maternal grandmother, supports me and disapproves of Sabrina and our parents' reactions. My home feels peaceful without Brian. I've redecorated, turning his office into a reading nook, and started hosting friends more often. I'm not ready to forgive my parents or Sabrina. The betrayal and their dismissal of it cut too deep. I've started dating Lucas, a teacher I met through a work friend. He knows my story and is patient with my trust issues. It feels good to be with someone genuine. Looking back, I see my marriage to Brian was already faltering, but Sabrina's actions ensured its painful end. I don't regret hiring the pie or confronting everyone with the evidence. It was the only way to counter Sabrina's lies and our parents' excuses. I share this to encourage others to trust their instincts if something feels wrong, even with family. Cutting off toxic relatives, though painful, can be the healthiest choice. I'd rather be alone than chase love from those who don't value me. I'm rebuilding my life and feeling hopeful for the first time in a while. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Stay tuned for more real-life stories, get more experiences.